Hey, Epoxy here with my co-host Gonk and K-Dubs. In this episode, we're covering the Capcom Cup Qualifier Asia East between Chris Wong and NL, both playing Luke. Let's get stuck in. We're going to start off here taking a look at one of the signature moves for Luke, which is his Sand Blast, one of the better fireballs in the game. In the first set, we see a pretty healthy amount of Sand Blast being used, nothing too extreme, but NL was using 29, Chris using 41. Chris was definitely more reliant on that, almost doubling that of NL. Didn't really feel like much of a weakness for NL having that many fireballs thrown at them. Actually, no struggle really on getting in. Obviously, a typical thing for a fireball is going to be as a zoning ability, but that didn't at all stop NL from getting in. In fact, NL still is really strong in these games, won pretty quickly in a lot of them, so it wasn't much of an issue there. In the reset, quite a bit of a different story. Both players increased their Sandblast use dramatically, with NL doing 67 of them and Chris also doing 67 Sandblast by our count. So really slows down the pacing of the games quite a lot, just getting Sandblast thrown at each other, and really just a fire off sort of thing. Nothing really happening there. Not a lot of benefit to the Sandblast. In fact, sometimes it could almost feel like it was a negative. And that leads us into this section here of Sandblast punishes. What I found really impressive in the game was just the amount of Sandblast that both players were able to punish. It's a quick reaction time to be able to do that. We saw a good amount of level 1s, level 3s, and ODs being used for those punishments, which is really impressive. So I was actually quite happy to see that happen in this game. So yeah, taking a look here at some of the stats of that, we have NL with 1 level 3, 2 plus a whiff for the level 1, and then for the overdrive, 2 of those, with Chris with 1 plus a whiff on the level 3, 2 for the level 1, and none of the overdrives. But for both players, great quick reaction times to get that kind of punishment, but also a negative of throwing out so many Sandblasts that you will get punished on that if the other player is good and has good speed, and that ends up being a lot of life loss. K-Dubs, what are some of your experiences with Sandblast as a Ken player?
Yeah, so my experience matching up against Luke might be a little bit different, given that I play Ken, and Luke kind of controls that neutral over Ken, with the Sandblast beating Ken's Fireball in neutral, but also controlling that space with the better pokes, meaning crouching medium punch, crouching medium kick. So my experience playing against Luke's, I see a lot of Sandblast, and I gotta figure out a way to navigate around it. And that might be why we see a ton of Sandblasts thrown in this match.
Fantastic. And Gonk, I think that leads us into the next section here, talking about the super usage and DP. What were you seeing here?
Yeah, kind of interesting with the DPs. Usually expect to see a lot of punishment on jump-ins. Not really something that we see a whole lot of in these games. More so a lot of work in corner pressure here. Kind of interesting correlation in match flow as well. NL's strongest matches are where we see a lot more use of the DP. Where those DPs stop, matches tend to go way longer. Poxy, I know you kind of struggle with overusing jump-ins. What are your thoughts on their DP usage?
Yeah, I was a little surprised at how little punishment was happening there. I find when I play, I get punished a lot on my jump-ins. It is something that I struggle with. I do it a little bit too much, definitely, which can, get me a lot of life loss when I'm doing these matchups with folks, especially on zoners like, Luke, Ken's, Giles, and stuff like that really try to push you into the jumping game. So it was pretty strange for me to actually not see that be such of a thing in this one. I would have expected a lot more of it. And what were you seeing on the super use front?
Lots of level 1 for the Sandblast punish. Chris threw out 4 level 1s in both sets. NL threw 4 as well. Good amount of level 3 from the combo setups. Total of 13 level 3 supers in this matchup overall. I think I saw a couple level 2 combos from Chris Wong, but not much there from either overall.
Great. And K-Dubs, any thoughts on your side?
Yeah, so with Luke's super, usage. He's got a lot of really great options. The level 1 has forms of invincibility, level 2 has forms of invincibility, and level 3 has a lot of invincibility. And so you do see a good variety of these supers, usually opting for level 3 or level 2, depending on when you can finish out the round, and that level 1 for its range utility, but also cheap damage, given that you'll still have super meter to work with.
Great, and you're seeing some stuff over on the drive rush side of it as well?
Yeah, so for drive gauge usage, we saw a lot of aggressive meter spending, both players opting to use a lot of drive rush and drive rush cancel for those combo damage and block pressure. In the second set, we saw even more aggressive spending, with both players breaking 30 drive rush cancels in that set, along with Chris Wong spending 25 drive rushes on top of that. Though the efficiency of that meter spent was in the advantage of NL, as Chris Wong would frequently spend meter and was not able to call out any of NL's options with shimmies or baiting DP or even frame traps. And this led to a lot of burnout. Epoxy, what do we got for numbers for those burnouts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were seeing NL with 12 burnouts, Chris with 15, which is quite considerable. I mean, compared to some of the other matches that we have seen, there being either no burnouts or an incredibly small amount of them. The drive gauge usage was a lot. Well, I mean, it's just maybe less optimized in these games. Now, to be fair to both players, we did see definitely burnouts happening either on the win combo that somebody was doing, or we seen them on that loss as well, where you're getting comboed and you go into burnout. So not all of these were just purely overusing the drive gauge. Some of them were being used for the win or in the process of losing, but just a pretty significant amount of that we were seeing in this game. And we didn't see a ton of wall stunts, if I remember correctly. I know you were keeping track of some of that stuff, K-Dubs.
Yeah, so with all those burnouts, it's quite surprising to see that we only saw one wall stun in this whole in both of these sets. But that's not to limit the impact that those burnouts had, because they frequently led to those like high stress situations where you're at low health, you're at burnout. What do? You get you can't block something, but you can't be hit. So yeah, oftentimes you lose a round by taking ship or getting hit by something trying to evade it.
Yeah, and that's all to say, too. We did definitely see non-burnout wall stun things happening. With Drive Rush, there were those handful of hits there. It seemed like the players would get got by that at times, but when they were in the burnout stage, it played a little bit differently from what I was experiencing.
Yeah, and part of that could also be that, when you're in burnout, you're looking for that drive impact. You're expecting your opponent to use it because it is such a strong option. But when it is not as strong of an option, you don't expect it. You're thinking about something else, and that might be why you see so much of that in higher level play rather than the wall stuns. Yeah, and something else to say about this is that both players really seemed to be unworried about going into the burnout. They seemed confident enough in their neutral play to really sit it out and wait for that recovery and not get put in a bad situation, though sometimes it did happen. But when it didn't lead to high damage situations, we did see some really long games in which they were both in burnout.
Beautiful. And Gonk, I know you're a Luke main. As such, what were some things that you're kind of picking up for your own gameplay from these matches?
Yeah, there's a lot, man. So much perfect flash knuckle, that combo execution, especially from NL's side, just absolutely incredible. OD flash knuckle, timing on everything, especially from NL and his reads, just peak Luke. And man, I've just got a lot of lab time ahead of me for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking a look here too at the momentum graph, we can really see that it leaned towards NL for the majority of this. In the middle section of games, it does get a little bit back and forth, a little bit more hairy there. But, NL starts off really strong for the reset. And also, we don't see a lot of momentum really happen for Chris. I think there is, about one time here where Chris wins a back-to-back set of rounds for a win there, whereas NL does at a handful of times. So really leans towards him in terms of the momentum and a well-won qualification.
All right, congratulations to NL on qualifying for Capcom Cup. Overall, this is a fairly aggressive and wild matchup. Look forward to see how that plays out in the future. As always, stay tuned for more analysis through the data. Catch you later.